When I'm at my best, I have more aspects of Stoicism than when I'm at my worst. Put it like that. And I'm not sure which comes first. As in, does the Stoicism help me to become my best, or when I'm sailing on calm waters, am I just able to look around more serenely?
And we are live.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary, come to me. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Bom, bom, bom.
Let it be, let it be. Oh, I thought we were all singing. Okay, with the Three-Headed Hydra, James' song of choice today was we're talking about Stoicism. James Edgerton, what do you know about Stoicism in a minute?
Just a minute.
We'll go
on. So Stoicism is a philosophy, I suppose you would call it, from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And it's a very practical philosophy, which talks about the responsibility of the individual, controlling the controllables, setting your own sets of values and trying to live by them, compromising, and choosing a master, a mentor to look up to and to follow. A few of the key players in the Stoicism movement were Zeno, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, who was also the Emperor of Rome. And that's my minute, but we'll go back to a few of those ideas, I'm sure. What do you know, Sal?
What do I know? I know nothing. But what I'm very interested in Stoicism is, what is it still relevant in 2020? Because you talked about this very ancient philosophy, and does it still offer us something today? And how, if so, can we integrate it in our everyday lives? So that's something I would be very interested in. And it's very interesting because back in those days, back in the old days, there was nobody you could go to when you had really big problems, bigger than life problems. Like religion didn't have the philosophical depth it has today. Like it didn't give you guidelines, so there was nowhere to go to. And so philosophers, they filled that void. And so Stoicism came in with some very practical advices, and I like these exercises they give you, and really hands-on, pragmatic guidelines. And maybe we can talk a bit about that, like the morning routines, evening routines, and all these things. So yeah, that's where people turn to when there was no Google. That's my minute.
I didn't come across any of the actual practices, Sal, so I'm intrigued about what they're recommending. The only other thing, but the way I'd describe it is maybe going at things with a more logical and less emotional approach. And it's kind of an approach and a philosophy more than it is a religion. More of a philosophy, like you say. But yeah, just trying to be as rational as possible. And I guess it's easier said than done, but this is what they were practicing. That's all I've got so far, man. Do you want to tell us some more about these key players, James?
All right. Well, I'll start with the idea of controlling the controllables, which is one of the most important ideas in Stoicism, I'd say. So Epictetus said, "Where do I look for good and evil? Not to the uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own." And you have to divide any situation between things that you can affect and things that you can't affect. The things that you can't do anything about, you have to let them be, as the opening song suggested. And the things that you can affect, like your reaction, your opinions, your emotions, then you have to take ownership of those. I think that's really important, because I think you said, Sal, what can it give us in 2020? Well, 2020 has been quite a year for everybody.
Really?
Then you know.
Why? What happened?
And so I think we've all learned that there are things outside of our control, but how we react to those aspects are very much within our control, and that's one of the key things in Stoicism. And it sort of, that quote reminds me of Solzhenitsyn's famous quote about the line between good and evil running through every human heart, not about one person being good or one person being evil, but everybody having the ability, the potential to be both. And so we can decide. The idea is it's our responsibility, and it's within our power to decide whether a situation becomes positive or negative by our reaction.
I heard a good real life example earlier when I was listening to some bits about Stoicism, and someone was saying that, for example, if you had a job interview coming up, rather than worrying about whether you're going to get the job or whether the people are going to like you, this is all kind of a bit of a waste of time. You're better to spend your time preparing for it and doing everything you can do, you know, which is obviously makes sense, but you do find yourself, don't you, panic just thinking, I hope they like me, or I mean, I haven't had a job interview in years, but you know, you can liken it to
you interview yourself every morning.
Yeah, you're trying to worry about how someone else feels, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just got to do everything you can do, and that's how you put all your efforts into that. And that's, I thought it was a nice little real life example.
And then that's another key idea in Stoicism, then, that we spend so much time and energy worrying about what other people think of us, right? And Marcus Aurelius has got a little line on this. He said, we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own. And so instead of worrying too much about what the interviewer thinks of you, what do you think of you? Do you like you? Do you value yourself? Do you like yourself?
It's very funny though. It's a very deterministic philosophy, in the sense that I can control my inner actions. So with the job interview that you just mentioned, I can prepare as good as I can for the job interview. But then what you think of me and how you react, and if you like what I say or not, it's not up to me anymore. So I shouldn't worry too much about it. So yeah, it's that's the question. Then this leads to the question: should you buy completely into the philosophy with everything that comes with it? And determinism is no small thing if you want to fully invest into this philosophy. Or do you say you want to take bits out of Stoic thought, but then it's not Stoicism anymore? Then it's just, patchwork philosophy and religion, and you create your own little patchwork of, let's say, guidelines you want to use, or toolkits that you want to use when you walk through life. And yeah, I'm not sure if you consider yourself, would you consider yourself a full-fledged Stoic follower, or do you rather take bits and pieces out of it that you think are very integratable with your own situation?
Is that me?
That's you, James.
I didn't know this was an interview. I thought this was an open table.
Or both of you. Well, it's I'm curious.
No, I think when I'm at my best, I have more aspects of Stoicism than when I'm at my worst. Put it like that. And I'm not sure which comes first. As in, does the Stoicism help me to become my best, or when I'm sailing on calm waters, am I just able to look around more serenely? But there's definitely a correlation there. But no, I'm not consistently Stoic, that's for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say there's certain aspects. But like Dan said a little while back, it's not a religion where you sign up to all 10 commandments. It's kind of a framework, a way of thinking,
right,
that you dip in and out of, and it's compatible with many other sort of belief
systems,
systems, right? So yeah, I'm definitely not a guru. but it would help me. It would help me to be more stoic.
It's a very good one. It's a very good one. So what Dan said before, you were interested in some of the exercises. Maybe if you have other ones, James, maybe you can share as well. But what I like, and I realized afterwards, basically I'm already doing some of them before I researched a bit about the.
Yeah, you were a stoic. You were a stoic, and you didn't know it.
Well, it rhymes. And what rhymes is good. For example, taking a bird's eye perspective on life, like taking yourself out of the situation and trying to see, imagine, visualize, like in meditation, visualize yourself from a very far perspective from above. That's something I do sometimes, trying to put things in perspective. I think that's what you're trying to achieve with this exercise. And it really helps sometimes, whether you're meditating or not. If you meditate, you may be familiar with this technique, but it just helps you to get out of your narrow view and to see things in context. So as they say in meditation, like there's always sun above the clouds, even if you can't see them. So that's the kind of spirit you approach life with. Another time is bedtime reflections. So before you go to bed or at any time in the evening, evening reflections or an evening routine where you sit down and actively think about what did I do well today, what did I do not so well today, and what did I do better today, or what could I improve? Like these little questions. I'm not sure what the exact playbook is here, the Stoic playbook, but it goes along those lines. And there's also a morning routine, which I do a bit more rarely, but it happens also sometimes when I remind myself that I'm grateful of certain things. And so waking up and being grateful that you woke up and others were not so fortunate up in the morning. I think this is things like these are also part of Stoic thought. So it's a very, it's called reflection. And also the book by Marcus Aurelius is called meditation. So you really literally meditate and reflect on a lot of situations concerning yourself and your relation to your surroundings. And I find it very, very appealing and very helpful, both for a peace of mind, but also to organize yourself and to put things in perspective and just get a fresh look and relieve yourself at times of the burden of everyday chores. When you do that every day and you don't think about it, and these boulders, they kind of accumulate on your shoulders and they get heavier and heavier, and usually you notice when it's too late that something went wrong along the line. But if you kind of follow these routines, among other things, I think it can really be helpful to some people.
Yeah. So to go back to our job interview scenario, the advice isn't to, because maybe people get confused to think, well, you just don't worry about what the people think, but you do worry. You reflect on what the people think after the fact, which is what you're saying. So you might be worrying about this job interview for a week, and then you go there and the person wasn't what you were expecting, and you prepared for them, and that's all out of your control. But so that's the wrong thing to do. But what you do is you prepare yourself in the best way that you know, because that's what's worth putting energy and time into. You prepare yourself the best way you know. Then you go to the job interview, and where people may get confused is you don't just walk away from the job interview, you don't get the job, and you just think, well, nothing I could do about that. You reflect on it after the fact when you can do something about it because you have more direction to go, Is that?
Well, I think the right interpretation would be you don't so much care about what the other person interviewing you in particular thinks about you, because that's out of your control, but you would rather reflect upon what could you have done better in the job interview to get the job. And it's a tricky meditation because obviously it also involves what the other person thinks about you. But then again, you can do that. Would there have been something better? Would there have been something that you could have done better to prepare yourself in a different way to get the job? And I think if you reach a conclusion that there is nothing that you could have done better through these reflections, then it's out of your hands. And that's also part of the Stoic philosophy, that you just let go of it, right? That's what I understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But there's, when you were saying about the morning and evening routine, Sal, something clicked, and I never realized this was a Stoic practice, but my sister gave me this thing called a 6-minute diary for Christmas one year. Basically 3 minutes in the morning and 3 minutes in the evening, you dedicate time to writing down exactly the things that you were describing, like targets for the day, what you're grateful for in the morning.
Right.
And then kind of a little review at the end of the day. What's gone well? What will you try and do better tomorrow? So that comes straight from Stoicism. So I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nowadays, people call it journaling. Like there's a lot of journaling apps too. Mm-hmm. And I had the same aha moment when I prepared for this interview, because there was this online journal, an app that opened every morning before I started a project, where I also wrote down what I want to achieve today. And part of it was also the Stoic kind of playbook. And I also thought, that's where this comes from. In the end, it's all connected. I mean, most things we do are somehow rooted in old philosophical thoughts or techniques, I guess. And most of the time we're just too ignorant to just know it. But it's fascinating how everything is connected.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose, to play devil's advocate.
Oh yeah.
Somebody who was criticizing Stoicism might say, well, it's all very well and good. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about things that you can't control. But what if the thing or the things that you can't control are so devastating to your life? What do? Just pretend that they're not there, or just worry about yourself? What does worrying about yourself mean in this context? What do you do with these external forces if they're unignorable?
Yeah, well, I think it's not. I think it's not telling you to ignore what's out of your control. It's telling you to manage what you can manage, and that's the best way to use your energy, isn't it? I mean, it's like I say, it's easier said than done, and I guess that's what I was curious about, what they were recommending you practice. I don't know, maybe I don't know what kind of daily exercises you could do to prepare yourself in that situation to be cool and rational and logical. But
I think there's one exercise for exactly that you see other things as in a negative, like a negative thinking or something. I'm not sure what the exact term is. For example, you're being grateful that you don't visualize what would it be like if you were homeless today, for example.
Yeah. And
this is one exercise where actually you put yourself into less desirable situations so that you are more grateful of the things that you have today. I think there were some exercises they actually did practice back then to prepare their minds for these kind of situations. Because you're right, if something really bad happens, like something really, really bad, should you just sit there on the sideline and be like, man, it's okay,
It's out of my control. So
there will be things that rattle you in life. And
But that's actually something that Sam Harris has mentioned once or twice. That if you're in a pickle, if you're in a bad situation, think about how it could be worse. Because there are a million ways that it could be a hell of a lot worse than it is.
That is helpful, isn't it? When you do that, you can, that's. I've found that before when you're in a pickle and you think about where how much does this really matter in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, definitely. And like you say, Sal, I did come across that kind of thing as well. I mean, that's maybe the nitty gritty of it. It's all easy saying that you can saying just don't worry about things you don't worry about, but I suppose the daily practice of I read a few things about not seeking pleasure so much. So maybe yourself through bad situations in your own time. Not bad situations, but if you expose yourself to negative situations, trying to think of a way where it would be helpful in life to do that,
Right.
But then you don't get used to the pleasure every day and seek the pleasure every day, and then when something bad does happen to you, you've kind of dealt in your own time how to react to these sort of things.
Right.
I mean, I think if you really deeply follow the philosophy, I think then, first of all, you completely buy into the idea that we do not have a free will. So anything bad that happens is already preordained. So there's not really that much you can do. There is this idea about external influence and internal things that we can change eventually, but it's still part of a system within which we are moving, which has already been written down. So if you really truly believe in that philosophy, you also have to buy into that. So this is also one thing that people actually criticize about the philosophy. And I think you truly, really, every day also have to really meditate and really practice this kind of thought, negative visualizing. I think what you just said is also true. It's also part of the Stoic exercise, which is putting your body into less favorable situations, straining the body a bit, and
that's what you mean. So pushing it, like testing yourself.
Yes,
and mentally as well, I suppose. But I suppose the very idea of thinking about things in the worst case scenario is throwing yourself into a negative situation, because plenty of people, and I've done it in the past, want to block. Yeah, people say, don't they, when you bring up negative things, let's not talk about that, don't worry about that. But I guess the Stoic way would be to entertain the whole worst case scenario, run yourself through that, and then that way you're kind of not keeping yourself protected, you know, in your head. So when something bad does go wrong, you're not used to this kind of breezy life that you're trying to live up, because that's never going to happen, is it? You're always going to, something negative is always going to come along. So
right.
But that's it. That's what I associate most with Stoicism. Actually, it's a kind of an unflappableness. You know, nothing good is too good, and nothing bad is too much of a disaster. You sort of sail through it, because it's about understanding yourself and controlling your own personal reactions to things, and also setting intentions, which you didn't mention. It's a lot about goal setting. I think it was Seneca said, no wind is favorable unless you know which port you're sailing to. Something along those lines. So you need to set goals and you need to move towards something. If then you change direction in the middle because you want to go for something else, then that's fine. But you're always moving towards something. It's the climb, as Miley Cyrus told us, the great Stoic philosopher.
Right. There was another great Stoic philosopher. His name is Joshua Dennison. Last week in the last episode, he talked about, or was it 2 episodes ago, the Chinese rice farmer. I think that, in hindsight, also was I was just thinking that very much the spirit.
Yeah, you're right.
Of Stoic thought, which is the rice farmer. I mean, if you haven't seen the story, maybe our viewers want to check out. Which episode was it again? It was the episode about
Alan Watts.
Alan Watts, right?
Yeah. And that's a Zen Buddhism tale, I think. That's story.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go further down that hole, maybe we should do 20 on Zen one time. Yeah, man.
I said there's also a bit of Peterson in Stoicism about tidying your room. It's about controlling it's a metaphor, isn't it, for controlling the controllables, looking out for the small details.
Oh yeah.
Setting yourself in order before you criticize the world. It's more taking personal responsibility for things rather than looking for a scapegoat elsewhere.
Right.
But that's good. I think we've hit the 20, haven't we?
I don't know. Let's check.
22:40.
Oh yeah! Wow, time flies by when you enjoy yourself.
When you're having fun.
That was good, man. I feel like we got through the surface. You know,
But there's a few. I mean, there's tons of good books about it. Ryan Holiday has written a few bestsellers recently on the topic of Stoicism. You could go back to the original. You just ordered Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, didn't you, sir?
Yeah, it's a few days. I'm still reading the introduction, which is actually longer than the book itself. It's quite yeah, but it's interesting, very interesting.
So there's plenty of materials out there.
Oh yeah.
I read a really short, really easy book called The Little Book of Stoicism by Jonas Salzgeber. Sorry, don't know how to pronounce that. But it was just a really quick, short book, a sort of summary around the main ideas. That was decent as well. But yeah, it's a good one. It's worth looking into. It's simple. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. You look like an Dr. Evil.
What?
Dr. Evil with longer hair, stroking the cat.
Okay.
All right, guys. Our listeners, thank you very much.
Fourth head just appeared on the screen. And like us, subscribe us, and all of them things.
Good for our self-esteem.